Hello, everyone. Welcome to Queerly Recommended, the podcast where we recommend queer books, films, TV shows, and more. I'm Kris Bryant, a contemporary romance writer for Bold Strokes Books, and this week I'm recommending a documentary.
And I'm Tara Scott. I review sapphic fiction at the Lesbian Review and Smart Bitches Trashy Books. And this week I am recommending a recently released sapphic romance novel.
Yay!
Kris Bryant, it's been 2 weeks. What is new with you? What's going on?
Well, I'm still racing towards my deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I got another extension, but it was only 2 days. I think they're done with me. They're like, stop it now. Just turn it in.
Yeah.
So I wrote a ton of words this weekend. And I thought this book was going to come in at about 65,000 words. So I was like, okay, that's manageable. This was like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I spent last weekend, not this past weekend, the weekend before, I went to Chicago and hung out with my friends.
Nice.
And I was the only one that wrote.
Oh.
Out of all the writers, I was the only one that wrote.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun, but I was like, oh yeah, I should be able. I was like at 61,000 words or something or whatever. And I was like, I should wrap this up. It should be no problem. And then the story grew. And so now I'm sitting at 73,000 words.
Whoa.
And I'm still not done. I still have to finish this chapter. I still have to write the final chapter. And then I have to write the epilogue. And I have to do this in 24 hours. And I have to go to a job and sleep.
Okay. What if you start a new trend, which is called, we don't do epilogues every book anymore?
They will murder me. Do you understand how people love epilogues?
What happened? What happened? Because there did not used to be epilogues for every single book. And now every single book, and I'm not, it's so funny. I'm not mad at epilogues. And there were some books where no, I don't know. I mean, there have been books where I'm like, man, I wish this had an epilogue because they don't feel like they're together enough or like solid enough as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
But like, there are some where you read the book and you get to the end and it's like, this is fine. And then you read the epilogue and it's like, well, that was too much.
Well, so here's the thing. Like, you are a reviewer. You have a different mindset than the person who is just like, I just need a romance to just get away from life for a little bit. Not that they talk like that, but I'm just saying, like, it's just, that's what happens. And so people want to read as much as they can and get as much as they can from these characters. And they want to know where they end up in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. I get it because I do too. I never want a happy couple to end. I always want to know what's going on and continue. But that's probably like, epilogues are for the romantic, sappy suckers that we are. We want more. We always want more.
The funny thing is, I do often feel like that. But even then, like, if it's written well enough, at the end of the epilogue, I do still feel like I could have spent another 100 pages with them.
Yeah, see? Yeah, that's true. That is true. So, I mean, I feel like I always plan for an epilogue. One time I didn't, and everybody was upset with me. And so,
so you got to write an epilogue.
So I have to write an epilogue. So I will write an epilogue. It might not be like 3,000 words, which is roughly about what each chapter is. It'll probably be something sweet and cute because the story is sweet and cute. And like, I'm just getting, like, this book could be 150,000 words if I had enough time. Not even kidding.
That would be a very big book.
That would be an epic. That would never happen. I don't think all the books, my pages combined, equal that. I mean, they do, but still. I'm always teased by my peers because my books are relatively short. And they also don't have my editor, who will only let me repeat myself maybe once in a book about something. And she's like, yes, you've said this already. And all of a sudden, we're out 14,000 words. So, it's a thing.
Keeps your books short and sweet.
And I actually had somebody tell me that. They noticed that I did not repeat myself in my writing a lot, because I guess that's like a trend. I think a lot of authors get extra words by repeating themselves, just to kind of get their point across, which is fine because I do it too. But an editor, a good editor, will take that shit out. And so I feel like, I mean, Ashley kind of holds me, she keeps me in check, and I appreciate that, or else I would be repeating myself.
I believe you just said that all the other editors are a problem. You heard it
Oh,
here
did I
first.
really?
No, I'm kidding.
No, I don't think that at all. I'm just saying.
No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I also think there's a place for like shorter I absolutely think there's a place for shorter romances. Like you don't
Mhm.
always want to sit down and read like a 500-page book that you could hold a door open with. Sometimes you do want to read
True.
them, and those are there, and that's great. But sometimes you just think like, okay, I have 4 hours.
Mhm.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's find something that's gonna make me feel really good, that
Yeah.
maybe has some spicy scenes in it, and,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's me.
So
It's my
that's
books.
good.
Yeah. Like, I went crazy on this one scene. Like, here we
Mm-hmm.
are talking about this, so we can move on. Let's talk about things, other things. We don't need to
Other
talk about my
things
book,
and
other
stuff.
things. What's new with you?
What's new with me? We have a big project happening around the house. We are paying some very nice, hopefully incredibly capable people to replace every
Oh my gosh.
window in our house.
So, what's the temperature there? Is it cold? Do you
It
feel
is
it?
right now it's about 40 and it's supposed
That's
to so for
cold.
Canadians today it's 5. It's supposed
Mhm.
to be about 10 or 11 for a high later this week, which I think means it's going to be more like in the 50 to
That's
60ish
probably
degree.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice.
So I they do it below freezing. They just don't do it when it's like minus 20 or whatever.
Well, because half the year is -20 for you.
Fuck, it sure feels like it sometimes.
I know.
But it will be good to get done because there are certain windows that haven't been able to open properly in a long time, and other
Mm.
ones. There's one that we can't open it because it won't stay open. So,
Oh,
yeah. This is the most expensive thing we'll have done to this house. It is more than replacing. We replaced every floor at
I
one point.
remember that. Like, you have so
Mhm.
many house projects, and I'm just sitting here
I
like,
know.
I haven't done anything to this house. I haven't, like, painted anything. I haven't done anything.
Well, it's we've lived here since 2008. So eventually over time it's like, well, okay, the roof, the furnace, the
Mm.
appliances, the all that. This was the last one and I didn't know. I knew it would be expensive, but I didn't know that it would be like buying a car expensive.
Damn. Damn.
Yeah. Buying a not expensive car, but still, that's still it's still a lot of money to buy a car that's
It
not
is.
expensive.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it though. And I'm hoping it means that the temperature control in our house is easier and better over the winter when it's, as you said, fucking cold in Calgary.
I love how adult you are right now. How responsible you are. And excited
Ugh.
about windows.
I'm excited to get it done because
Yes.
it's been such a long like building towards it and
Mhm.
applying for a loan and then applying for a grant so they could pay back. It's like a thing. I don't know if you know in Canada they do this thing. It's kind of cool where you can get a loan from the government. It takes 10 years to pay back, but it is 0% interest
Oh, wow.
as long as you meet certain standards.
Mhm.
So, yeah. You know what? You know what's the sign that I'm old? That I got excited because we got a sale so that we got triple pane windows for the price of double pane. I am
Oh,
old. That is a big old
that
excitement
I
thing.
applaud you. That good for you for getting those triple panes.
Well, we had to get the loan from the government. But see, this is boring. Kris, what
See.
have you been reading or watching?
Well, what have I been reading or watching? So, I'm still watching Survivor. It's
Mhm.
only like week 3, 2, whatever. My friends are hitting me up like, "Who's your favorite?" I'm like, "I barely know the people who are on, and I won't really know them for like 6 more weeks until I finally get to see their
Mm.
personalities and all that good stuff."
Mhm.
Also, because Prime Target and what was the other one? Oh, Traders, the Traders. Because they're
Oh yeah.
finished. Like, I have all this time,
Mhm.
not time, I'm writing, but I like to have the TV on when I'm writing.
Yeah.
So I picked Paradise back up, and it's a show on Hulu, and there's 25,000 people who live in this fake city that is underground. It's in a cave. And you're
Okay.
like, "Why are these people here?" And there's, like, some sort of apocalyptic thing, and you don't really know. You know it has something nuclear, but you don't know what it is or how it got there. They're very vague about things.
Hmm.
And so I watched, like, the first 2 or 3 episodes, and I was like, "Meh," you know, it's okay."
So like Lost, but less interesting.
Well, but then it got interesting.
Oh, okay.
I know, because then we had answers, like how what? It was just like, "No." And then you could see it happening, and it was just like, "Oh my god, that's so believable now." And
Hmm.
so it got really, really just fun and tense. So now I think I finished. I think the season's over. Like, I'm just so
Cool.
sad, like, it just ended. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
But it ended well, and it makes me wanna watch it again because it ended I mean, I don't like cliffhangers, but that's the way the television has for the last 25 years, that's the way it's turned, where they leave it on a cliffhanger. So you're gonna wanna watch it when it comes out again. But I'm gonna forget about it in a year, and so I'll have to rewatch it, kinda like what I'll have to do for Handmaid's Tale, which comes out next month. And also, I hate villains. Like, I hate villains. I'm starting to
Okay.
hate villains in all things that I watch. Speaking
Okay.
of villains, I'm also
Uh-huh.
watching 1923, and I'm getting really sick and tired of the son not getting home.
Boo.
I have been waiting for the series for that, for a long time.
Yes.
And so at the end of the first season, they're like, Spencer needs to come home and save the farm or save the ranch or whatever it is. It's a
Mhm.
ranch. And so we've been waiting all season for Spencer to get his ass home.
Yeah.
He's still not home. He's still not home. It's
Spencer,
almost over,
what the hell?
right?
Mhm.
And it's terrible. His journey and his loved one's journey is terrible. And I remembered how terrible the journey was in 1883. It did not get any better in 1923.
Oh, no. Are you gonna give up on it, or are you gonna keep going?
No,
Mhm.
I don't quit.
I know.
I do not quit. So,
Mhm.
and I love Harrison Ford and Helen Mirren for sure. And
Yep.
they're great. I love their characters and they're just good people and you want to be neighbors with them and you want to help them. I want to go be a
Mhm.
ranch hand on their ranch.
For sure.
Yeah. So that is pretty much what I've been reading or watching. What about you?
Mhm. Still watching Drag Race. There has been some completely bonkers, this is the most drama-filled season ever. They did an episode where they held a roast. You know what that is, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So for people that aren't familiar, a roast is like a comedy event where you have like a bunch of people there, and it's this like very pointed, kind of mean, but really funny jokes about certain people. You're usually honoring one person. In this case, they were honoring three people. But there was all this drama around. I mean, for people listening to this, they're going to be like, this was like 3 weeks ago. And I was like, I know, but I still can't believe, for me, it was a week and a half ago. I still can't believe that this happened. So this one queen was so mad about where she got put in the lineup that she stole jokes from the one who assigned the lineup, even though they were the best friends in the competition. And I was like, what?
Damn. Yeah. Hmm.
What? It's been very interesting seeing what some of the other drag queens have had to say about that in the recap show. And that queen immediately gave herself the villain of the season. Speaking of
Ah.
villains,
Yes.
like, just came across as like
Villains.
unhinged, but I will say it's not a boring season at all. And then bedtime middle school reading continues.
Oh, good.
We are on to our next book. It is the first of a series. It's called The Vanquishers by Kaylin Bayron. And so it follows the perspective of this kid who her name's Malika, but she goes by the name Bug, and she and her best friends, they've really idolized this group called the Vanquishers, and they were these vampire hunters, and they were the ones who wiped out the last horde of vampires
Ooh.
a couple, however many decades ago. And now most people don't really take basic vampire precautions. They don't really need to anymore, except the occasional person, like Boog's parents still do, and some of the other friends in the group, their families still take it seriously. And so we're not very far. But according to the blurb, it says when a friend goes missing, and I don't know who the friend is, I'm not even that far.
Oh.
It says when a friend goes missing, Boog isn't sure what to think. Could it be the school counselor, Mr. Rupert, who definitely seems to be hiding something? I will say,
Mm.
Mr. Rupert is a creepy fucker. Like, my kid and I
Oh.
both agree there's something off with him. Although
Mm.
I wonder,
So it's like Professor. Oh, I can't even say it.
that's what I said
I
too.
wasn't gonna say it.
Is
I
it
can't.
like
It is
Professor Snape? That's
Snape. Yep.
exactly what I was wondering. Like, okay,
It
okay.
probably is to
Is
throw off
he
the scent.
exactly? Is he the bad guy or is he actually a good guy? Who can
He's
say?
a good guy.
And so The big thing is clear though that like
Hey,
and I
good.
know this from looking at the blurbs of the next two books in the series, vampires are back. And I don't really know how this works, but the writing is so good. It's so fun. It's so vivid. Like I'm enjoying it as much as my kid. I look forward to
Oh,
reading
good.
it every night because it's
Right.
so well done. And there is queer representation in it
Oh, nice.
because
Right.
Jules is one of the kids in the friends group. Jules is non-binary. Oh, it's the bad cat. It's the devil. We just got a little appearance by Orange from Orange Kitty. So Jules is one of the kids in the friend group. Jules is non-binary. Cedric is another kid in the friends group. Cedric has two dads. And so it's not like any of the kids romantic anything that, but it doesn't need to be. It's just very clear like there are queer people in this world and it's like the main characters are all black. And so I also love that it's like black queer
Nice.
characters as well. And so super fun. If you're looking for a middle grade fiction book for kids, so far I highly recommend it and it rates
Nice.
really well on Goodreads. And
Oh,
your fellow BSB author who I've been
whoop,
talking
whoop.
about a lot in the last year,
Mhm.
Gunbrook, has a book out recently that I read. It was lovely.
Aw.
It was yeah, it was a nice one. So it's called Scarlet Love and there are 2 characters, as there always are. But one of them is a travel blogger. Her name's Puck because her parents are fans of Shakespeare. Puck has a van, like she literally just like travels in her. She has a van that she's converted so that she can travel all over and she travels with her dog. So this is a book where like the dog is an important the
Love
dog
it.
is a very important supporting character. If you love dogs, this is
Yes.
a great book to pick up. But her van breaks down in the middle of a rainstorm in
Ugh.
Vermont, and she's like, fuck. And except she's nicer than that, so she didn't say fuck.
Right. Oh,
But she
darn.
trudges with her dog back to like as far back to where she last saw a house. And at that house is Felicienne. She's French Canadian, so she has a fancy French Canadian name.
Felician.
And Felicienne is very, very, very guarded. I hesitate to call her an ice queen. She might actually be an ice queen because Gunbrook does write them fairly regularly. But at the same time, I think it's more she's just very private and very guarded and very cautious and has a hard time building relationships. That van is fucked. So Puck can't just leave right away. Like it's going to actually take a month for it to get
Oh
fixed.
my gosh.
Yeah. But Felicienne is a I mean, I suppose she's a gardener. Like she has greenhouses. I don't know. It's a botanist. I don't know. Somewhere in there, but like she's creating hybrid flowers.
Oh, oh,
And she's very, very good at it. And they're very, very beautiful. And she has a book deal to put together some kind of a book about all these things that she's doing. And what she doesn't have is a photographer for it.
oh, look at that.
And so
Yeah.
since Puck can't go anywhere for a while, there's this like, well, it turns out you're actually a pretty decent person. Why don't you stay here? We'll do this project together
Oh,
and I won't charge you to stay at my place. And it goes from there. And I thought it was really sweet. It's
oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
yeah, it was a nice way to spend a couple of evenings. It was good. It's just not what I recommended because what I'm officially recommending because another book blew my friggin' socks off. And so
Oh,
that's what I'm recommending. Um
oh, exciting.
mhm. But first, Chris,
Yes.
what is your official recommendation this week?
Ooh. Okay, so my official recommendation this week is called Chasing Amy. And it is
Uh-huh.
a documentary from 2023 by a local to me filmmaker, Sav Rodgers.
Okay, that's cool.
Right? That's why I would that
Mhm.
was that
Mhm.
oh my goodness, I can't tell you how excited I was about that. I was like, "Oh my goodness, Sav went to KU, went to film school, and is in the Kansas City area," or was, now I think has moved, but it was just very cool. Like,
Mhm.
queer people in the Midwest have a different upbringing than queer people on, the big cities or on the coasts. It's
Mhm.
different. And, not to keep talking about my editor, but that has been kind of a point with us because she was born and raised in California and just doesn't understand that there's a different
Oh.
world in the Midwest. And so a lot of times she just thinks it's just me that I'm just a late bloomer or whatever, and that's not the
Mhm.
case at all. So I picked this documentary not only because, like I said, Sav is from this area, but also queer person, trans man.
Mm,
And that movie had Chasing Amy had a big impact on me too.
yeah.
Yes. So when Sav was in middle school, he loved Ben Affleck. Like,
Mm,
loved
mhm.
movies, Ben Affleck, everything, blah, blah, blah. And found a movie in his parents' movie collection and had never seen it and had Ben Affleck in it. And it was called Chasing Amy.
Oh.
And absolutely fell in love with it because there was queer representation and there was love and romance and just things that weren't available
Mhm.
even in 1997. I think that's when Chasing Amy came out, was 1997. He did not know that it was problematic. Again, we're a different world down here or
Yep.
over here in the middle of the country. Did not understand that it was problematic until he started making the documentary and asking critics and interviewing critics and reviewers and even stars of the movie.
Mm.
Yeah. So how this all came about was Sav did a TED Talk. And that's the next thing I'm going to look up is the TED Talk because
Yeah.
apparently it was amazing. And Sav explained that that movie really saved his life,
Mhm.
saying, queer is okay, queer's in mainstream. This is
Mhm.
Chasing Amy was a huge mainstream movie. And we'll get to that in a little bit because that's some shit right there.
Mhm.
And just kind of felt like Sam wanted to do movies and loved Ben Affleck and just everything about this movie just helped them, go through everything queer, go through their transition, go through just like life changes and love and all this stuff. And this movie helped him move along.
Mhm.
So he did this TED Talk and explained it
Mhm.
and posted the TED Talk, and it wildfire. Like Kevin Smith, who's the director and the writer of Chasing Amy, reached out to
Yeah.
him and said, "Hey, if you want a little bit more insight on this in this movie, I'll talk to you." But like Ben Affleck retweeted it and said, "Hey, I'm so happy that this worked for you and that this movie
Oh
changed your
my
life." And like
god.
it absolutely took off. Like this
Yeah.
TED Talk, which is next on my list to watch, just sounded amazing.
Mhm.
So then Sav decided, okay, I'm going to do a documentary on this whole entire like the whole movie, what it did, where it came from, how it came about. So he went to Jersey. First of all, he went to Jersey, New Jersey, where Chasing Amy was filmed,
Mhm.
and kind of did everything touristy that he could for the movie. Like went to the places that were in the movie. He sat
Yeah.
in the booth where Ben Affleck sat and he's like, "Oh, my butt is where Ben Affleck's butt is." Just kind of like,
Uh-huh.
Sav's pretty young. I think maybe he's 26, 7, somewhere about that time.
Mhm.
And so, you still have that kind of that I don't even know what to call it. It's just kind of like you still have that excitement of having that. I
Yeah.
really admire this person. As you get older, you're not as like, not, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but you're not as like, oh my God, I need to go like do this and see this movie and go see this
Yeah.
person in concert everywhere they are. And it's just, life kind of gets in the way of that kind of stuff. And you grow up and things change. So as he gets into the documentary, he talks to people about the impact the movie had.
Mhm.
People nowadays they have a completely different idea about the movie, different take.
Mhm.
Some interviewees say that it's even though it was queer, it's still a straight man's movie. Like they are not wrong. Think
Oh,
about that.
yeah.
For
Oh, no.
sure. Yeah.
Kevin Smith is
Yes.
very, very straight.
Oh, I know. And and it's funny because the lesbian is blonde, blue eyes, pretty feminine, sexually like wildcat and
Mhm.
and the whole thing and experimental and the whole thing is the message is that like if a lesbian finds the right man, she's no longer a lesbian. And that has
Bisexuals don't exist.
right. And that was a thing. Like this movie brought about, biphobia
Mhm.
because I mean in 1997 I mean, I think
Wasn't
pretty
good.
much you were lesbian or you were gay. Like queer
Yeah.
wasn't really a word that was thrown around. I don't remember hearing the word bisexual. I mean, for sure, pansexual didn't exist.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
they existed, but didn't know
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
term for it.
Mhm.
A lot of massive stereotypes. in this movie, like Ben Affleck's best friend Banky. They have this whole comic together, that they write this comic book, they draw it in I'm sorry, graphic novel. Sorry about that. Yeah, graphic
That's
novel,
fine.
comic book. And so Jason Lee, who plays Banky,
Yeah.
when he read the script, he's like, we're going to offend a lot of people by saying, the dialogue in here is going to be extremely offensive. And he goes, I'm really uncomfortable saying some of this stuff because his character is a total, like, he's an asshole. Like, he says
Yeah.
all the words you don't want to hear. He dykes, faggots, just terrible, like,
Mhm.
just terrible words. But Kevin's like his explanation was, that's how people talk. That's how my friends talked.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
1997. Yeah.
And it is true, like, not
Mhm.
yeah, 1997 where, like, the worst thing you could be in high school was gay.
For sure.
Like, I get his point that it's real,
Mhm.
but there's also a difference between, like, giving an honest portrayal and giving space for views,
Right.
like, especially in a movie like that where it is a comedy. Like, so I watched I was he was my favorite director for a while. I love
Oh,
a lot of his
really? Like
movies, but that
Clerks,
movie, yeah,
Mallrats.
like Clerks, Mallrats was a big one. Dogma was a big one.
Oh, love Dogma, yeah.
Yeah, but this movie, like, I watched it and there was just this, like, even then when I was
Ick.
closeted even to myself,
Mhm.
extremely religious, and I watched it and something didn't sit right.
I
And
know.
I didn't know what it was. And now as an adult, I know what
Mhm.
it is.
Yes.
It's the
Yes.
biphobia and the homophobia,
Big
and it's
time.
the, like,
Right.
what is the balance between accurately and responsibly showing bigotry and normalizing it
Right.
by putting a character like that who, like, if I recall correctly, I don't think he's, like, 100% hateable. Like, if they're best friends, there
Right.
has to be enough there so that the viewer can understand why they're best
Yeah.
friends. So when you put a character like that out there, you are still normalizing it to a certain degree.
You're very smart, and you're very right.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I agree. I agree with everything that you said, and we'll get into that, also.
Mhm.
There's a lot, like, I have a lot to say about this. I had a lot
Let's
of
go.
feelings.
Let's
Okay.
go. I'm
So
excited.
so so here we go. So Sav interviews, Kevin, actually goes to his house, and it's just like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I'm in Kevin's
Mm.
house. We're talking about it, and it's amazing." And, at the time, Kevin was considered very forward thinking.
Mhm.
He even says in the interview, he goes, "I know that this movie didn't age well."
Yeah.
But he also said, "But I'm also glad that this movie saved you."
Yeah.
So, it did help some people. Like I said, for me personally, it showed queerness, mainstream, and that the person didn't die. Like, the gay person doesn't die in
Yep.
this movie. The gay people do not die. There's not a bad
Yep.
ending. So,
Yeah, they're not punished.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
And, at the time, the movie got a lot of good reviews, and
Mhm.
Joey Lauren Adams, she
Mhm.
plays Alyssa, the main character. She plays Alyssa, the love interest, the lesbian
Mhm.
slash bisexual, whatever, because she doesn't really talk about. I mean, it's a bad word in the movie. Bisexual is a bad word, and like when she's sitting around with all of her lesbian friends, they're like, "Oh, another one bites the dust." When she finally fesses up, like, "I'm dating a man," and the
Yeah.
whole entire, like, everybody's like angry, like, "Oh, another one bites the dust." So again, that whole thing is, if a lesbian finds the right man, then of course she's no longer a lesbian, and all it
Mhm.
takes is a man. So anyway,
Well, and defining somebody's sexuality by the gender of the partner that they're with at the time.
right, right, right. So Alyssa, she actually was nominated for like a Golden Globe for this, and won like most promising actress at the Las Vegas Film Critics Society Awards and the Chicago Film Critics Association
Whoa.
Awards. Yeah, so this was a big deal. So Sav does an interview with Kevin and Joey.
Mhm.
It's kind of sweet, and we find out that they actually dated,
Yeah, they
like,
did.
yeah, during this, like, kind of
Yeah.
like, only for a short time. It's only like 3 months, but they dated and blah blah blah, and it goes on, and
It's an important part of the lore. I don't think I can overstate how, like, into Kevin Smith movies I was. I listened to his
a
podcast,
lot of
like,
it
a
then.
bunch of his
Oh,
podcasts, a
you're
bunch
gonna
of
love
it's
this.
like I haven't thought about him in over a decade, but then when I
Oh,
think back to, like, before I was married and maybe even the early days of when we were married, like, oh yeah, no, that was my shit. And I'm a little sad I didn't watch this in time to talk about it with
Oh, I
you because
know.
I'm definitely going to watch this.
Yeah.
Like everybody, when Kris
You're
told me that she was going to
oh.
recommend this, I was like, holy shit, it's available. This is amazing. Cause I read about it probably last year, but it was going to a festival. And so I was like, oh, so
Right.
I'm never going to see it in Canada. And it turns out my library has it on their digital
Yes.
collection. So,
Yes.
mhm,
You're gonna
mhm.
watch it,
So
and you're
yes,
you're
I
gonna
am going
call
to.
me. You're gonna be like, "Let's talk about it," because I
Kris,
finally saw it.
I'm
There's
gonna
so
leave
much
you a
going
bunch
on.
of yeah, I'll leave you a bunch of voice notes because I know you're
Yeah.
writing, Kris. And then another thing, so
Right.
they dated a little
So they
bit.
dated they only dated for, like, 3 months.
Mhm.
So the relationship didn't last, but, in this thing, they had really cute chemistry when they were chatting and talking, and it was very sweet and everything until they didn't! Oh my god, we have to talk about this. Ho! Ho!
Okay.
Oh my goodness. So the next day, Sav has this one-on-one interview with Joey, and she's like, I'm tired of answering the same questions about the movie. So Sav's like, hey, I've seen the movie over 200 times, and I'm sure I can ask you different questions than most people. Okay. And it makes sense. This person has watched the movie a lot of times. So then Joey just kind of goes at him like, this movie destroyed me. I know. Like it came out when
Whoa.
women in our industry were expected to put up with the sexual advances and sit on people's laps because if they didn't, then they would not really be blackballed, but like they wouldn't get a job
Hmm.
because they just wouldn't.
I have a theory.
Oh, but it gets better. So I have to bring this in. So the big kicker is that Harvey Weinstein made the movie.
Oh,
Stop
yeah,
it.
yeah,
He
yeah.
funded it.
Yes.
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 He made a
Yes.
yeah, because he was the
Yes.
Miramax guy, and these were all
Yes.
Miramax films. Yep.
Yeah, and so she hated him and she hated the relationship that Harvey had with Kevin because it was all like the good old boys club type thing. And hey, I'm going to elevate you because you
Ew.
did this and it's really great and blah blah blah. And she got fucked. Like that's what she's saying. This whole time she's like it destroyed me. Like I was
It's
just
funny
like,
you said that because when you mentioned that she got the most promising award, I was like, "Wonder what happened to her." And the thing that I
yes.
forgot is that they were Miramax films. So she
Mm-hmm.
probably got something similar to like, I'm guessing what happened to her is the thing that happened to Ashley Judd?
Probably.
Fuck, which if people aren't familiar, I mean, you can look it up, but basically, like, Ashley Judd
Yep.
wouldn't sleep with him and he
Mm-hmm.
tanked her career.
Right. And so now, I mean, this
Gross.
again, people, you have to keep in mind, this was 1997. This was in the late
Yeah,
1990s, I guess.
late, yeah.
So it was a whole different time. It was a different period, and sadly, women were kind of still at that time were still kind of treated like meat. That sounds horrible, but it was
And Miramax could do no wrong. Miramax was,
exactly.
like, one of the
Mhm.
darling studios, and, I mean, when you look into the whole Harvey Weinstein, there's some horrifying shit there, like, there's a bunch of
Mhm.
articles that were written, but, like, he basically employed people to keep women silent.
Terrible. And it just
Gross.
destroyed her life. I mean, she did a couple of movies after that, but I
Not a
mean,
lot.
she has a lot of anger
Mhm.
still. Rightfully
Mhm.
so. I mean, I'd be pissed
Mhm.
too. So I was like, that floored me. And you could see like Sav was just like
Gutted.
shocked. Like, yeah, like this has been a lie my whole entire, this whole huge part of my life has been a lie. So him
That is
trying to
so
adjust
sad.
to it. Yeah, it was very, very sad. And it's to see his growth. The documentary I think takes place over 4 years. And to see his growth from the beginning to at the end, it
Mhm.
was actually very sweet. It has to do with kind of what we were talking about. The older you get, the more you realize you don't need these things.
Mhm.
You don't need these people. You now have your own life and your own loves, and you move on that way. But anyway, I digress.
Wow.
So at the same time, Chasing Amy was out, and at the indie films, there was another movie. Excuse me, making rounds. It was called Go Fish. Do you know that movie?
The name is really familiar. I don't know
So
if
it
I
was.
saw it, but I remember the publicity for it. I remember that there was publicity for a film called Go Fish. I couldn't tell you what it
Mhm.
was though.
I know it was. I don't know if I saw it or not, but
Mhm.
Guinevere Turner, she wrote it. She wrote it and she started it, and she was also in Chasing Amy. So she was like,
Okay.
she was kind of mad because her movie wasn't getting the same recognition as Kevin's movie was because it was
Mm.
also a queer movie. People liked it, but it went nowhere. They all like at the awards and everything, they
Mhm.
liked it, but again, lesbian doesn't matter. We're gonna give the glory to the white man who like did this mainstream movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so she
That's
was
really
actually she was kind of upset. She's like she complained about how bad the movie was, like how lesbians have
Mhm.
sex, and you can just tell that she was pissed because Kevin got it wrong. The way that they they have this huge conversation. Ben Affleck and Joey are sitting on swings and they're talking about how do lesbians have sex and what is sex? Is it
Mhm.
penetration? What is it?
Mhm.
And her description of it like is wrong. And like
Mhm.
she's a straight woman trying to play a lesbian,
Mhm.
and she's reading dialogue by a straight white man who
Mhm.
doesn't have the experience, doesn't really have and I'm not quite sure if Guinevere said anything to him like, "You're wrong. Like, this isn't how this is not right. This could hurt a woman if you did this," because there were some things in there that was just, like, wrong. So,
Oh,
and I know this
100%.
because after the documentary, I watched it. I watched Chasing Amy. I went from Chasing Amy to Chasing Amy because I couldn't remember
'Cause you
all the
needed to know.
specifics. Yeah. I will give it credit.
Mm.
In 1997, I was like, "Huzzah! Mainstream movie. I love it. It's gay.
Of
Nobody's
course.
gay. Everybody's gay. It's stereotyping, but it was also gay and it was queer and
Mhm.
it was just nice to have. We didn't have a lot, and so we kind of clung to it.
Yeah.
But yes, it did not age well. And the one thing it did do is it did bring about I wouldn't say an education, but it did bring to light the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it sexualizes lesbians and it really hammers the message about they just need to meet the right man to change it was that whole thing, which is icky.
Yeah.
But the justification that both Kevin and Joey say that made it okay, quote marks,
Mhm.
because Kevin wrote the dialogue saying that Joey did this on her own terms.
What does that even mean?
So, like, she made the decision on her own to start this relationship with this man, even though she calls herself a lesbian.
Oh, that the
The
character
character,
did
yeah.
um, sure.
I mean,
Sure.
yeah. And yeah, so she just like, I love this man, but it's on my own terms, and like that made it okay.
D I mean, I sure, but also it still represents magical thinking,
Mhm.
and,
Right.
like, if it at least would have introduced some kind of a, "Oh, maybe I'm actually bisexual," or even just saying, "Okay, I'm a lesbian, but for you," which does occasionally happen, but, like, the fact that it's it does reinforce the narrative that, like, you just need to find the right guy, you just need to
Right.
find the right dick, which
Mhm.
unfortunately has been used all too often in,
Mhm.
like, actual crimes because there are people who believe in corrective rape, like,
Right.
fuck all the way off into the sun.
Right. Which, yeah, yeah, that was very stressful. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I
I
think you're right, like, it was important, and I don't think a queer movie could have gotten that much attention if it hadn't been done by a studio like Miramax, by
Yep.
a straight white guy like Kevin Smith. Like, to go back to what you're saying about the frustration, like, why didn't Go Fish get the same attention? And it's like, well, I don't think he could have made this as his first film. And it wouldn't have gotten
Oh,
the
right,
attention.
for
If
sure.
it was his first film, it wouldn't have gotten the same attention, or even his second film. This was like one of his passion projects
Mhm.
after he'd already had several films come out and build
True.
an audience. And he had a built in audience of passionate fans. Like,
Mhm.
Kevin Smith's fans were fucking freaks. And I say that as one of those freaks. Like,
Yeah.
they were just so
For sure.
into it and would watch anything he would do for years and years until it started to feel sad and, like, I grew up.
Right.
But, like,
Exactly.
that's what, like, who put out Go Fish? not a big studio. It wouldn't have
No.
gotten the same marketing budget. Like
But they
Miramax
were
had
all yeah,
marketing
I mean,
budgets.
but everything
Like,
was introduced at the indie films, like all these small little
mhm,
film festivals that they have. So I think
yeah.
everything kinda had I mean, I don't know how they work, like, I don't do a lot of indie it's like, don't they all get the
No,
kinda same attention or no?
not necessarily. Well, and also I will acknowledge I just said all of that with so much confidence, and then I remembered that I don't know how it works to go from producing a film to then a film being picked up and distributed.
Uh,
And so I think that's also like, yeah, maybe it was on the same indie film circuit, but then didn't actually get to go beyond that. Like, how do you actually
mm.
get eyeballs
Oh,
for
yeah,
people?
mhm.
Like, Chasing Amy was in probably way more theaters than it was in way more theaters than Go Fish would have been in.
Right. So, what I thought was interesting was Kevin did say that he based this movie on his own personal experience with somebody named Amy, hence Chasing Amy,
Right.
because the main character's name is not Amy, it's Alyssa.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, where the fuck does Amy come in on this? Like, who's Amy? But I will say, I mean, yeah, the humor is like raw dude humor, straight dude
Mhm.
frat humor is what it is. And so, but it was fun seeing Babyface, Matt Damon,
Mhm.
like Ben Affleck, and some of the comedians who have been on Saturday Night Live. Like you see
Yeah.
some budding stars in this movie, and like it is so low budget. They made it. I think he said he made it at like 250,000. Like it
Mhm.
certainly wasn't in the filming of it because the filming is terrible. I mean, of course, things are different. I could do better with an iPhone. Like, it was
Oh, yeah,
terrible.
people do
Like,
better with iPhones
I
now.
know.
Yeah.
I was watching it going, "How did this make it to mainstream? It's
Mhm.
terrible. The editing is terrible." Like, there's a scene I was laughing so hard. It's like the big critical I don't know that it's the climax of the movie, but there's a scene where, of course, it's raining, the rain's
Mhm.
coming down, and Ben Affleck just, "Bleh, I love you." And she's like, "You can't do that to me, blah, blah, blah." And so
Yeah.
he's walking back to the car, and it's pouring down rain, and she's running to him. But as he's walking back, like they pass by like some department store or something, you see the big windows, and like you see the reflection of the film crew as they're walking, during this very, very pivotal scene of the movie. It's just so
Uh-huh.
bad. Like, how
Mm.
did nobody catch that? It's just terrible.
No.
But again, I mean, it was just
90s.
right. It was the 90s, and it's just fun to laugh and look at the like the fashion and like how people had their
Mhm.
hair and of course Jay and Silent Bob are and everything and like
Oh,
their humor is
yes.
terrible. But there's some of it that makes me laugh, which I shouldn't laugh, but
Mhm.
I recommend this documentary just to
I'm so in. I'm
yeah,
so ready. I'm so
it's
ready.
to see somebody who nowadays, like only 5 years
Mhm.
ago, just thought this movie was the shit, like the greatest thing ever, and then they
Mhm.
go through this whole pivotal growth of learning everything about this movie and why it's so problematic for people today, and trying to understand it. Like, yeah, I get that, but I
Mhm.
was just a kid from the Midwest, and we didn't have anything, and I didn't know I was queer.
Yeah.
Everybody knew I was queer before I was, and so
Yeah.
just seeing the whole process and, at the end of the I don't wanna ruin it for you, but the end of the documentary is very sweet, and, yeah, I kinda had, like, a little tear in my eye.
Aw.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you'll have to watch it, you and Neil will have to watch it and tell me your thoughts, so
Oh, definitely.
I'm
I definitely
excited
will.
now.
I am too.
Okay, so that is my official recommendation. Tara, what is your official recommendation?
Okay, so my official recommendation is a new sapphic romance from Bella Books, and it's called
Mm,
Sweet Home Alibarden Park. And this is kind of like a one night to forever story. It
mm,
is set in the UK. The story actually opens with one of the lead characters, Fiona Turner, and she is like at an office signing her divorce paperwork.
terrible.
Her terrible cheating ex is there at the other side of the table. They've been married for a year, but she found out that her wife cheated on her.
Mm.
And her wife tried to say that it was all Fiona's fault because Fiona was too busy. Because her
Ugh,
job is
workaholic, of course.
right. But her job is like she's a lady's maid to the princess, Beryl. And they have a
Oh,
very
interesting.
they have a super interesting relationship because her dad worked for the king.
Mhm.
She was 3 years older than Beryl, and the king basically decided that they should be raised together. So Beryl would always have a built-in friend who then became her lady's maid. So it's this like, she's my best
Mm.
friend and she's my boss. But anyway, so Chloe is terrible and cheated on her, and Fiona kind of leaves the room and then learns, oh, this isn't new. She'd been
Mm.
cheating on her for 8 months. And
Wow.
so Fiona is gutted and she goes to a pub with her brother. She's going to drink her tears away. And then her brother at one like there's this like really hot soft butch who's like hanging out at the bar, and her brother is bi, so she thinks that he goes over to hit on her, except it turns out that, she's interested in Fiona. And so
Mm.
he's like, you should go over there and maybe do something about that. And so Fiona is interested in Alice. Alice, like I said, she's gorgeous, soft butch, curly black hair, southern drawl because she's from the
Ah.
US. She's from Alabama. And so her brother gives her the keys to his place. He's like, I'll go somewhere else, take her back to my place. And she does, but then like all these memories flood in and she's like,
Mm.
I can't do this. And Alice is the very best. She's so lovely. And she's like, that is okay. Here is my number. If you are comfortable, reach out to me. I really, really like you. Of course, Fiona is too upset. She's too broken. She doesn't reach back out.
Mm.
Fast forward a little while. The princess is now going to be the queen because unfortunately her father has passed away.
Mm.
And so Beryl says, like, look, I would like you to do me a solid, and I think this could be good for you too. There's always like the custom is there's going to be some kind of an event, like a dinner, dance, whatever, before the coronation that's always held at Alabarden Park. But there's two problems. The first is that it's fallen into disrepair, so it needs to be brought back up to like,
Mm.
we need it to be good for an event for this. And also, there's a duchess who's brand new. She actually grew up in the US in a
Ah.
farming family in Alabama. Want to guess who it is? So Fiona doesn't know this though. So she's like, yeah, okay, I'll go renovate Alabarden Park and teach the duchess how to be a duchess. And of course, the attraction is still there for both of them. And Alice
Mm.
is like a total, total gentlewoman because
Mm.
Fiona's like, we can't do this. Like, you're my boss. Like, you're effectively my boss. And so Alice is like, okay, whatever you want. And it's just really so the whole romance, it's a question of, can Fiona accept, especially after what she went through with Chloe, can she accept that she's good enough
Mm.
to be loved by Alice? I fucking love this book so much. So much. So the whole thing is told from Fiona's perspective. This is her journey. This is how she fixed,
Mm.
her heart how does her heart get fixed? She lives with anxiety. So how does that work given all the things in her? She's got
Mm.
a lot of shit going on, right? Between like the queen and the renovations, and does her ex pop up again? Of course. And
Ah,
like
of
all these
course.
things. But part of this journey is that she actually takes a break and steps away from her regular life.
Mm.
And like, yes, it's busy and fast paced at Albarden Park, but she's not at the beck and call of Beryl and her schedule. And so I think that gives her some of that space to figure out how to fix her heart.
Um,
And she has some massive insecurities. And she's so like, people think that she's so stern and she puts on this image of being really stern, but she's so lovely. And when I picture, it's funny, I think I do have actor picks for both of them. And so for
oh,
her, I picture it's also circa in the movie, but you know the woman that Hugh Grant falls in love with in Love Actually?
oh yeah, Natalie.
Yeah. Yeah. So I picture her at that time, or like maybe a little bit later because she's supposed to be 36. And then for Alice, I picture Katie O'Brien, but with like her hair a little bit longer and curlier on top,
Okay,
is what I
okay.
picture.
Ah, nice.
And just, I love Alice. She's so dreamy and she's so like, she's almost too perfect, and I don't care because she is everything that I want for whoever Fiona is going to give her heart to next. She does this very careful balance of like, she's flirting. It makes it very clear that she's interested in Fiona, and she will never step over Fiona's boundaries. She will walk right up to them. She will walk right up to the edge of that boundary, but she will never, ever, ever cross it.
Mm.
And we actually watch it's so funny because it's all through Fiona's perspectives, there's times where I'm like, "You really are a useless lesbian, aren't you? Like, you don't understand that this woman is in love with you. Everybody else knows that this woman is in
Right.
love with you. What the
That
fuck is wrong with you?
happens.
Oh, you think you're not good enough. Oh, you think you're not good enough." And I will say, like, when I started reading this, like, I have mixed feelings about the whole monarchy thing, and
Ah,
like,
really?
it's like, do we need this? Do they actually do a service for the public? And, like, I'm not opening this up to a conversation about the monarchy. Also, please don't email us. It's just, it's hard not to read books about dukes and duchesses without knowing, like, how they amassed their wealth. The wealth that's been handed down is often that's why it's hard to read historicals sometimes because it's like, well,
Yeah,
where did it come from? Oh, enslaving people,
that's right.
that sort of thing. But with this book, I think there's something very interesting happening when we see Alice, who her story is that like it's basically the Princess Diaries, actually. I don't know
Okay.
if you remember what the Princess Diaries is
Oh,
about, but
yeah.
it's this,
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah.
American who has no idea that she's
Oh,
related to
she's right.
royalty. And
Genoa.
yeah, except in this case, it was like and this is all told like pretty early on. Her parents died when she was young, like
Mm,
a baby. And so she
mm.
never knew her parents. The people that found her didn't know because it was like a car accident situation. And so she's been raised in the US as part of a farming family. And so she brings a very different sensibility than somebody who would have been raised in that system. And so we see like she has these very progressive ideas. And I think by showing her reaction to what do you mean we have all these artifacts from China and Egypt? We should give them back to China and Egypt. Why should
What
I
do we
have
have
them?
them?
This
Yeah.
makes no sense. Or like, what do you mean I have a private jet? What do I need a private jet for? And she really cares about sustainable farming and all these things. So I thought it was a really great way to have a romance that brings in, royalty and the peerage, but also critique it at the same
Right.
time.
Yeah, it's a clever way.
Right? I thought that was super, super smart. I also loved the writing style in this book. So we're recording this on Monday, partly because I just okay, so like I said, I enjoyed Scarlet Love, but I just had a feeling there was something else that was going to catch my heart and fancy a little bit more. So I wanted a little bit of extra time. And so I was reading it yesterday. I spent like a bunch of hours yesterday reading it because it's not a 65,000 word book.
What? Is
It's
that a
not
dig?
it's, no, it's not a dig. I'm just saying I would have been done sooner if it had. So I was like, okay, so I need to read this pretty quickly. And then I was fucked because I enjoyed the writing so much. I actually could not speed through
Oh.
most of it. I wanted to savor the
Oh,
language
I
and the
love that.
writing style. And I was like, "Ah!" Like I'm on a deadline. And then I remembered, wait, this is my podcast. If I don't finish the book, I can still recommend it, and that's okay. And so what I did was I skipped ahead and I skimmed the end. And I'm really sorry, but I had to just make sure that it didn't biff the ending because I just needed to savor the language so much. And so I have a few examples for you. And it's a range of like some I find are really evocative and some were so funny and some were quite emotional. So I have one
Okay.
where this is from a scene where Fiona goes out on a horse. She's looking for Alice. She thinks Alice is maybe fucked off on a horse somewhere. She's like, "Where did she go?" And goes and finds there's this like little area with like a little wooded area and there's a trail and she goes in and what she sees dark timber out she sees like a small house. Dark timber outlined the white brick in a half Tudor style with leaded windows, a false thatched roof, and a beautifully carved arched wooden door. It seemed equally likely to harbor a squatter, a brigade of spiders, or a fairy tale witch ready to consume the neighborhood children. I could picture that house
Right, for
when she
sure.
said that. Like, it was so good. And then one that made me laugh. Okay, so Alice and Fiona are talking and having a conversation around like, okay, so like what if we would have actually gone through with having sex
Mm,
before? Like what would have happened? And Alice said, I reckon we'd be married by now. And Fiona's
wow.
like, what? No way. You can't marry somebody you've known less than a year. And Alice is like, yes, you can if it's the right person. um, And so Alice says, "Or you'd marry me to get your hands on all that antique stuff you like so much. Leave me in that big old house, heartbroken and alone." Fiona raised her eyebrow. "Bold of you to assume I wouldn't take the house too." "Heartbroken and destitute." Alice placed her hand on her heart dramatically. "A black widow spider. That's what you are, Miss Turner. Yet you're not duly afraid of me." And this is my favorite part, because black widow spiders rarely bite and they only bite males. And like you, their eyesight ain't great. I just, I loved that so much. And then there was one final one where I just kind of went, oh, and this is the one that I highlighted because there was just something there that it just hit me so well. And it's after there's this like big event where Alice has to like be the Duchess. It's not the big one with it's not the big one with the Queen. It's like a trial one they're doing with some other like
Mm.
dukes and whatever. And talking about how she doesn't feel like she fit in. She never felt like she fit in anywhere. She didn't fit in where she grew up. She doesn't fit in here. And now this is like Fiona reflecting on it. Her stomach ached as if Alice hollowed her out with a spoon.
Mm.
To think she somehow wielded enough power in Alice's world to make her insecure. Alice's certainty of self always amazed Fiona. However, when Alice wasn't overly careful to project positivity, one could see the marks of those who tried to tear her down. Her gentle, kind soul tucked into a rambunctious, fissured vessel that glittered like kintsugi.
Wow.
And I was like, fuck. Like, it's just the writing is so good. It's
Now,
so good. Yes.
did you mention did you happen to mention the author's name?
TJ O'Shea.
Did you
I
mention that? Did
I
you?
thought I did.
Hmm,
But if not, I will say this is the first book that I've read by TJ O'Shea. And it's definitely not going to be the last because,
good. Yeah.
man, if that's
You
how
sound
apparently
like
she
you
had.
enjoy it. Yeah.
I really did. Well, and
Good.
I was telling another friend because they mentioned something about looking forward to this book. And then I got an email from somebody at Bella that was like, "Hey, these are our books. Do you want any?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, my friend likes this author." And I just started reading it. I was like, "Oh no. Oh no, I'm in trouble." This story doesn't really have any angst, and I
Okay.
do not care
Right.
at all because all the angst is instead of being in the will they won't they, it's
Oh,
more in the again, it's that journey of Fiona. It's the, can I accept this? Can I open myself up again? Can I be vulnerable enough to let somebody love me? And reading some of those passages, especially where she's digging into those, like I could feel it in my body. It was so good. The emotions are just layered on so beautifully. And I really love that this is a book where it doesn't end at the I love you. The I love yous actually come a lot sooner than that.
mm,
And there aren't a lot of books like that that I can recall where you see the relationship continue on from there somewhat. And you see that really full establishment. The other one that it makes me think of is All That Matters by Susan X. Maher. That's one of the things that I love about that book that I think is so special is we see them from like first meeting. Although in that case, that one is a friends to lovers. So there's like the first meeting, the friendship development, then the romantic, and then the like there's a whole lot like there's it goes from like when they first meet, one of them is trying to get pregnant, and when it's over, that baby is like a baby that's been around for a while.
toddler.
Less yeah, exactly, right? He's going to college. No. It's less it's a the timeline is a little less than that in this case, but I I just think given the current state of the world, which we're not going to get into because we're actually about distracting from the world. Like for me,
Right.
seeing that love and having so much confidence in it is just so beautiful, and it works really well for me. There are a lot of side characters in it because of course like we're talking about it's a British estate. Like it was supposed to be the largest estate that's not owned by the monarchy or something like that. So like this is a big place, so there are a lot of people in it. And again, I could picture some of those. Like I kind of want it turned into a mini series or a
Bridgerton.
movie. Yeah, right? Like somebody needs to pick it up and do that because I think it is perfect. And also,
Mm,
also,
mhm.
I have said some things over the years about covers from Bella Books that have not been the kindest. And I will say, I like the cover to this book, and I think it's the best cover I've ever seen for them. It just like it feels fresh and current. It's
Good.
illustrated, but it doesn't do any of the stuff that annoys me about illustrated covers. Like, this
Mm.
looks like 2 adults who are actually, it looks like 2 adults who
In
are
the
coming together to fall
same
in love. Yeah,
right.
not like you look at it and sometimes with illustrated covers, you can't tell if it's a YA book or if it's about adults. Like, I think that cover is a home run. This is, I will say, we're recording this on March 17th. This is my favorite book so far this year. I'm
Mm.
absolutely love it. It is called Sweet Home, Alabarden Park, which cute because, Alice was raised in Alabama, Sweet Home, Alabama, but
Yeah.
now it's Alabarden
I
Park.
was trying to sing it in my head,
It does, yeah, it's you fall
but
off the tune real
Alabardinus, yeah.
quickly with all those syllables.
Too many syllables.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. This book was so damn good, and I highly encourage people to read it, especially if you want something just like warm and beautiful and lovely. And that's it. That is all for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. You've subscribed by now, haven't you? Didn't you hit that button on your app? If not,
You shoulda.
please do. You should, because then you'll have it show up in your feed every other Tuesday. If you have a friend that you think would like recommendations like we made today, please pass it on to them. And if you want to support us, we do have a link in the show notes to our coffee.
And you know how to find us on all the social medias, right? Right?
They should by now.
Or you can just email us at podcast@queerlyrecommended.com because we'll answer.
Yeah.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Are you frozen? You're frozen. It's just me. Hmm. Hello? 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 Hello?